All right. This is Heather Longoria, and I am the host of I Am a New Therapist video series. And I started this series because I graduated in February of this year and realized that even though I had a great education for 18 months, I still had a ton of questions by the time I was done. So I figured that other people did too. And so today I have with me Sandi York, who is an accountant that specializes in working with fitness professionals. And I met Sandi through an Instagram challenge that the Movement Maestro did. And she just has tons of really excellent content on her Instagram page, which is fitness, can you remind me, fitness coach?
Fit Money Coach.
Fit Money Coach, that's it, thank you. So I'll just turn it over to you, Sandi. If you can explain like how you got into this field and why you enjoy working with fitness professionals.
Sure. Well, first of all, I got my accounting degree way back in 1990. So I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
And it's funny, similar experience being an accountant. You go to school to learn how to be one, you get your degree, and you come out and you realize, I don't know how to be an accountant. So
yes, exactly.
You spend that period of time figuring that out. I started in public accounting, and just to put that into terms everyone can understand, that's public accounting. It's accountants who are there for the general public to come to. Maybe businesses need an audit or something like that, or you just need your taxes done. As opposed to being in private is when you go work for a company, maybe as a CFO or a controller, that kind of thing. Okay. So I got started in public. I lasted about 5 years, which is pretty typical, and then left, and I was in private for a number of years. And then still not finding my fulfillment, I started my own business. And this is several years ago. The internet was a thing, but we didn't have all of the tools that we have today. Everything was still very much done on paper. If you were doing taxes, you were printing that tax return, giving the taxpayer a hard copy, driving around to people's offices to do their bookkeeping for them. It was a very inefficient way to do business and very hard to do as a sole proprietor. So eventually I made my way back into public accounting. I'm actually still in public accounting. I'm doing Fit Money Coach as a side gig for right now. But the whole time, my career has spanned pretty darn close to 30 years now. And that whole time I have been a huge fitness enthusiast. And I started with online training as far back as 2003, I think, was the first time I actually found someone who was writing programs on the internet, and there was a forum. I met some really great people that I'm still in contact with today through that forum, and used a variety of coaches over the years from online. I've always been very self-motivated because I'm one of the people that absolutely loves exercise.
Yeah.
So, the exercise piece and the things that I found to do in my personal life are where I was deriving my passion. It's hard to be passionate about accounting, especially in the beginning. You're not given a lot of access to clients in the beginning. You're basically at a desk with stuff coming in to do. Or if you are out in auditing, you're the auditor no one wants to see. You're not there to solve their problems. You're there to check on what they're doing, right? So, it was a long time before I got in the right position and had enough experience to work with people one-on-one and discover that I had that coaching ability. I was surprised to find that when you get down to working with people one-on-one, as I used to say, there's a lot of social work involved in accounting because people have a lot of emotion tied to their feelings about money, even if it's a person doing personal tax returns. I have a story on my poor little pitiful website that needs some serious love, but I have a story on there about my favorite client who was a recent widow who came in and she had to get her taxes done. Her husband was the one who always did their taxes. And he had a disease, so they knew that the end was near, and he tried to set her up in the best position she could be in to have the things available. But she still had so much nerves and worrying about not speaking the right language and all of that. And I was able to talk her down off of the ledge and show her examples of what she had used in the prior years as documents. These are the things we're looking for. And just learning how to be that calming influence for someone and help them realize that, we're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. So that was when I started to realize that I had the coaching piece. But it was actually a friend of mine, one of the women that I met on that forum from, I met her probably close to around 2003. I'm still in contact with her. She started casually throwing out there, hey, Sandi, you should really do a course for fitness people because you love it. And it's an area that we know nothing about. No one teaches us the business side of running our business. We know how to run our businesses. We don't know anything about tracking the money piece. Or if we do, right? It's like, bits and pieces, right? So she said that, and I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea that I did nothing with. And she said it about 3 months later. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea I did nothing with. And this pattern continued for probably a year until finally I was like, okay, maybe she's onto something. Maybe I should look into this. It was intriguing to me because it was something that bridged the gap between my accounting skills and the movement that I'm passionate about. Yeah. I weight trained for 25 years, absolutely loved it. And then all of a sudden one day I was done with it and I got into calisthenics. And now this, everybody's a movement person now, and bazillion things you can get into, and that's still my passion. So for me, this seems like a really logical and a really good fit because I speak the training language. I know, I know the basic business models, even for a massage therapist. I'm a big fan of massage therapy. So I know the basic of the business model. And so, yeah, I'm excited because I think it's a great way that I can use my existing skills and help a population that maybe doesn't have a whole lot of help to reach out to. Accounting can be expensive. And so I'm looking for a way to reach out and help the startups that have questions, but don't want to risk calling someone and getting a $200 phone bill for a phone call.
Yeah, right. So do you still work full-time for public accounting?
I do.
So, okay. Is that hard to manage doing this side gig with the full-time?
It is. I've got another busy season getting ready to start in a couple of months.
Yeah.
But my husband is active duty military. So what I'm trying to do is set myself up where eventually Fit Money Coach can be my full-time gig, and I can just follow him wherever he moves around the country. Nice. I won't be tied into a specific location. That's always been my hang up. In recent years, he's like, why don't you just do your own thing? Because we need to stay in a place longer than 4 years. And then all of a sudden, light bulb, no, we don't anymore. Yeah, that's not necessarily true. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually have an accounting degree as well.
Oh, do you really?
That's what my undergrad degree was in. And so I work part-time for a bank doing project management, and then I do part-time therapy too. So that's I'm curious to see how you're working on making that transition as well too.
Yeah.
So and the people that you work with, what do you see as like the biggest kind of blind spots people have our new entrepreneurs have in regards to their finances and how to run a business?
Basically, nobody wants to keep up on their bookkeeping. It's a hassle. It's not what you got into business to do. You got into business to help people, right? So taking the time to actually put your records into some kind of system. If you're not comfortable with a bookkeeping system, even keeping an Excel spreadsheet or something is better than nothing. And people have a tendency to think of their bookkeeping as only being for the purpose of being able to get their taxes done. That's the only reason you need to do it. And there's so much planning that you can do from the information you get out of it. If you know what your monthly P&L is, you can back into the number that you want. I'm making this much net a month. Well, I want to grow to this level. How do I get there? You can make that plan if you have your numbers solid in front of you and you can see exactly where you are, instead of just flying by the seat of your pants and going, I've got $500 in my bank account, I'm going to go do this right now.
Yeah. So you can make more strategic decisions then.
Yes.
And is that something you help your clients with too, as well as kind of like business planning and figuring out how to grow and how to spend your money in the best way possible?
Yeah, I'm actually coming out with a course that is going to walk people through this process of starting with an average of 3 months bank statements. You can pull any 3 months and it'll teach you how to walk through them, pull your income and expenses, average them, and then project that over the course of a year and look at it and see what decisions you want to make and how to reverse engineer your income to where you want to be.
Man, so helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm almost done writing it. I've written the first module. I have 2 more to go that I think are going to be quicker. I had a target November 30th launch date. I'm hoping I'm going to make that. But yeah, that's going to be a piece of it. And then a piece of it will be learning to read financial statements. It's going to be very brief. You don't need to be an expert in this area, but just learning the connection between what you just did with that budgeting exercise, looking at a financial statement. Okay, here's what it would look like if you were using something like, say, QuickBooks. And then the last module would actually be, okay, if you chose QuickBooks, here is how you would actually set up a company, connect your bank account, do your bank reconciliations, and use it to get the information you need out of it. That seems to be the biggest hole. QuickBooks has done an excellent job of marketing to business owners, small business owners, saying, you know, that we are your bookkeeping solution. You just put it on autopilot. You don't have to think about it. And then people buy it and they're like, I don't know how to use this thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same. I'm using QuickBooks, but all of the other ones, FreshBooks, Xero, whatever is out there, you're going to find yourself in the same situation. There's just a baseline under time to learn.
Yeah. Well, and like because I was going to school for accounting, and my mom runs her own business. She does she teaches paint classes, and then she does concrete lawn ornaments.
Oh,
and
fun.
Her organization skills are not optimal. And so I'm like, let me do your books for you in QuickBooks, which I should have known better, because you should never do business with your mom, for one thing. And then it was like, I was just going to school and didn't really know what I was doing. And so like, if you don't set it up right from the beginning, it just like turns into a nightmare, like the more you work in it. So like that initial step of setting things up correctly is so important.
Yeah. And that's also one of the things I've written myself notes to remember to include. If you've already set it up and you've got started and now you've got this monster in there, how do you start unraveling the monster and get it back to what it needs to be? It's not that hard. The problem is it's time consuming, and people have to make the commitment to sit down. Even if it's 15 minutes a day, that's going to be better than trying to find a block of 3 hours to sit down and get something done.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for like a solopreneur, somebody who's just a single shop, like a massage therapist that just like maybe rents a space from somebody, or a trainer who like does contract kind of work, do you think it's necessary for them to go into something that's like as much set up as QuickBooks? Or if it's just, you know, like, here's my income, here's like my training expenses, is Excel good enough?
I think it can be, for sure. And depending on what the business volume is, especially when you're just starting out, and if you're good with spreadsheets, I mean, it doesn't even have to be an Excel spreadsheet. It could be literally a piece of paper, you know, the summarizing everything, break it down to the level that you need it to be at. Anything is better than, you know, it used to be we threw receipts into a shoebox. Now all of your receipts are automatic PDFs. And so remembering to go through and download each of those receipts. You know, when Amazon's like, thanks for your purchase, here's your email, there is actually a receipt in there that you could PDF and save to your computer.
Yeah.
If you were ever, not to be a fearmonger, but if you were ever selected for audit, you're going to need the actual receipts. And I'm certainly not going to tell you need to print those and keep them hard copy, but at least make a PDF, put them in a folder on your computer that gets backed up so you never lose it. Yeah. But yeah, especially in the beginning, there's nothing wrong with tracking pen and paper, Excel, whatever. Just you need some sort of plan, some sort of something.
Yeah. And some sort of organization structure, because like when I worked with my mom, it was like a box of stuff, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yes. And I will say, one of the things I don't recommend, believe it or not, is the QuickBooks version for sole proprietors. Can't remember if that's exactly what they call it, but if not, it's something similar. It's basically a receipt scanner that you can scan a bunch of receipts from your phone and kind of tell it where to go. It's fine if all you want to do is capture your receipts. It's not going to give you the planning tools that you could have if you actually sit down and looked at your monthly results. Here's what I brought in, and here's what I spent, and here's what I had left over.
I see.
You're not really going to get that kind of detail out of it.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay. Let's see. And so this leads me to another question. Like from a financial perspective, what is there different advice you would give to a therapist or like a trainer that's going to be a contractor versus going to be an employee for somebody?
Yeah, if you're going to be a contractor, you basically need to understand that you are actually operating a small business right there. If you're an employee and you get a W-2, you get a paycheck, you get a W-2 at the end of the year, you really don't have to do anything different.
Okay.
You're someone's employee. If you are an independent contractor and you're showing up at their location and they're just giving you a check, and at the end of the year, they give you a 1099, your tax reporting is no different than that of the person who is employing you, assuming that they are a sole proprietor. They may have employees and whatnot, but if they are the sole owner, they're reporting their taxes in the exact same way that someone who just has one 1099 is going to do.
Okay.
As a contractor, whether you feel like you're in small business, you are a business owner or not, you are a business owner.
Yeah. So it's really important in that case to be like taking money out each week to set aside for taxes.
Yes.
Is there like a percentage that you recommend people set aside for taxes?
It's really tough because let's take you and I as an example. You're in Florida where there's no state income tax.
Yeah.
So all you have to worry about is federal, your basic tax rate, and your self-employment tax. I can tell you that self-employment tax runs around 15%. And that's on your net income, not your gross income.
Okay.
Your federal rate is going to depend on what else you have going on in your family. Are you married to someone who works? Are you married to someone who owns a business? What else is going on in the household? That can really change things a lot. So the easiest way to just kind of get a ballpark, a real rough rule of thumb, would be to pull out your prior year tax return and actually read it. People don't do that. They like put in numbers and they're like, I'm filed. Sweet. Actually look for the line that says total taxable income.
Okay.
And look for the line that says total tax. They're going to be several lines apart because there's going to, whether or not you have numbers in the fields, they're going to be several lines apart. If you take your total tax and divide it by your total taxable income, that's going to give you a rough estimate of the real rate that you pay, because that's going to be adjusted for any other deductions you have, if you're taking the standard deduction or if you're itemizing, that kind of thing. So it's tough to give a blanket. You need to make sure you're putting this much aside. When I give blanket numbers, it's a scary number like 40%. Because let's get back to I'm in New York. I've got to add almost 7% on top of the federal and the self-employment tax as a New York resident, because we're a high income tax state.
Oh, wow.
So some states are zero, a handful of states are zero for income tax, a handful maybe 2 to 4%. And then you've got New York, California, Massachusetts, Connecticut that are those higher rates. So
okay. At least that gives people some numbers to think about.
Yeah.
Instead of being super shocked at the end of the year.
Yes. and one thing, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent right now. There's a book called Profit First.
Okay.
And I highly recommend it. I'm just starting to implement this in my side gig. And it looks super scary at first because they tell you to open 5 different checking accounts, or savings accounts, but 5 different bank accounts. And out of each deposit, you put certain percentages into a tax account, into a profit account, into an owner's compensation account, because you want to be able to pay yourself, right? There's an operating account that you pay your expenses out of. And then the 5th one is that income account where all of your income comes in. It gives you a guideline of percentages to start with. They say to start with taxes at 15%. As a startup, especially if you're in a low income tax state, that may be enough. For me, my number is going to be closer to 40%, just because I've got the spouse who works and I've got my real job that I'm getting income from. So but it'll give you baselines of where to start, and it's guiding you from your bank statement perspective. Everybody logs onto their bank and sees where they are, like, oh, I got this much cash in my checking account. I'm going to go buy X. It gives you a way to keep money in your business account for those business expenses, but make sure that you've also already paid yourself a little something, set aside a little something for taxes, set aside a little something for profit.
Yeah, makes everything more clear, it sounds like.
Yeah. It's a
Instead of all
little
just being in one
cumbersome with the
bucket.
multiple bank accounts, and that's going to be a little bit of a hassle for people. But the benefit, I think, outweighs the hassle.
So that raises another question too, and maybe this is more of like a question for an attorney versus an accountant. But do you recommend, if somebody is like a contractor, just staying as a sole proprietorship or becoming like a LLC, or how do people go about making that decision?
It is a legal question, but in general, if you are a sole proprietor or you are a single member LLC,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing is going to change as far as your tax perspective. You're still going to be filing on Schedule C in your
Okay.
income tax. The only thing with LLC is it's supposed to give you an additional layer of legal protection, where if someone were to come after you, they can only take the assets of the business and not take your personal assets.
Okay.
Most people, when they're just starting out, they don't have a whole bunch of assets to protect anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see LLCs used a lot when someone owns a business and they own the building that the business is operating out of. They'll put the building in a separate LLC to protect that building from being something that someone could seek in a lawsuit.
Okay.
But honestly, when you're first starting out, your best protection is going to be your personal liability insurance.
Okay.
And it's probably a little more sensitive of a and trainers, where you actually have the potential to possibly hurt someone, than it is for an accountant who, at worst case scenario, might screw up your taxes. It's not going to be a life-threatening thing to you.
Yeah.
You know? So absolutely seek out the best insurance and the appropriate insurance that you need. Get
Mm-hmm.
that in place. And then as you start to build some assets, maybe build some wealth in your business, then start to think about LLC.
Okay. And then, do you know, is there a resource you've encountered that makes it clear what you can consider a business expense when you're like a sole proprietorship? Because there's so much overlap between like your personal and your
Yeah,
at that
there
point.
is. It's basically anything reasonable and necessary to carry on your business.
Okay.
And that's like straight out of tax code, reasonable and necessary. So there's a lot of gray area. There are things you don't want to do. You don't want to write off 100% of your gym membership and claim that that's a business expense. If you are shooting videos out of the gym for something you're posting in your social media, if you're using it for other things related to your business, we'll take a percentage of that.
Okay.
You can claim mileage for your car, but that gets really sticky because you can't claim commuting mileage. So if you're driving to the same studio every day, where you're an independent contractor for whoever you're working for, you're performing your services, that same drive to and from your house every day is considered commuting miles.
Okay.
So there's a lot of sticky. The best thing I can recommend for someone in the United States would be to read the Schedule C instructions. It's going to lay out all of the different categories, or buy my course when I launch.
Exactly.
I'm not going to cover a whole bunch of tax information in that because I'm trying to make that available to anyone in any country. But we will show the basic categories. You can simply look at a Schedule C and you'll see all of the basic categories that fit most people: advertising, professional fees, commissions, rent, for sure, supplies, you know, basically anything that you are using in your business legitimately, and you need it for business, is a qualifying expense.
Okay. That's really helpful. Okay. So anything else, like advice you would want to give to a therapist or personal trainer or anybody in the fitness field when they're first like starting out and jumping into business for the first time for themselves? Like any common pitfalls you normally see or things that people just ignore?
The biggest thing I can recommend is try to do it as debt-free as possible. So that's going to be a lot easier if you're an independent contractor for someone, and basically you're just showing up to provide the service and they're taking care of providing the tables and the linens and all of that stuff. Before you strike out and you decide to, say, rent a brick and mortar studio somewhere, have a really good idea of what your monthly expenses are, and take a look at your fixed cost. You know, you're going to have a certain amount of rent to pay. Your telephone bill is going to be a certain amount. What else do we have? I think I made a list. I lost my list. I was jotting down some thoughts. But anything that you know is going to be recurring on a monthly basis that you can't get out of. You can't get out of your rent just because 5 people canceled on you.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get out of your cell phone bill, these things. Add those up. That's the minimum that you've got to cover just to be able to break even. Yeah. And nobody wants to break even. People want to buy food and clothing, roof over their heads, and
yeah, right.
Go on vacation. The other downside to being a service provider is no more paid vacations unless you've tucked aside the money to pay yourself while you go on vacation.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me the first time I went into solo practice for myself. I was like, oh, I just went away for a week and all of this stuff just piled up because there's no one else to do it except for me.
Yeah.
So,
and you're not getting paid while you're gone. So
right.
Yeah. That's why I'm still working because I work for a bank, and I'm like, I still have insurance and I still have 401k and I have paid vacation. So it's easing the transition.
Yeah, for sure. And anyone that's in that situation, this is the best time to figure out what are your current expenses versus what would they be if you went out on your own. And take that time to do that planning rather than just jump into, I want to be a business owner. I've got a credit card that has a $10,000 limit on it. I can get everything that I need to be able to set up. I've done it. I've done it years ago when I went out on my own and everything still had to be printed. I got the big fancy printer with the color and, back in the big time and software and project management stuff. And before I knew it, I had bought way more stuff than I actually needed. And I had the next several months paying for stuff that I'd already bought when I didn't have the cash for it.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's a very tempting thing to do. There are some things you might need. You might need to buy a portable table or something. There are some things you just might need that you have to put on a credit card, but you know that you can pay off within the first month or two. Mm-hmm. That's different. Just don't go hog wild and think, okay, I'm in this, I've got to buy everything I need. And I'm saying credit cards, but bank loans, whatever. Anything that's going to lock you into having to make a minimum payment for a period of time is only taking cash out of your pocket.
Yeah. Such good advice. So if anybody that's watching this would like to work with you, I know you have the course coming out in November, but in the meantime, if they just want help setting up books or figuring out what information they need to start collecting for taxes and stuff like that, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? And do you offer programs, or is it just kind of customized to whatever the person needs?
It's pretty much customized to whatever the person needs. That's the best way, because there's really no one size fits all, right? Yeah. So my email is Sandi, SANDI, @fitmoneycoach.com. And you can find me on Instagram and DM me there at fitmoneycoach. I'm also planning a membership-based support. I don't know how to say it. Not support group sounds terrible.
People do need a financial
coaching group. That's the word I'm looking for. A membership-based coaching group that'll be a low monthly fee, somewhere between $30 and $50 a month.
Okay.
It'll probably be a private Facebook group, as much as everybody groans over Facebook, just because that's the easiest way to keep content together, get people in the same room, and be a place where there would be no long-term commitments. You can come get your $50 worth and take a hike, or you can stick around. And I'm hoping that there will be a lot of engagement. I'll be in there answering questions, providing tutorials, whatnot. That's going to get launched after the course, though. So I promise I'm not trying to turn this into an infomercial, but
no. Well, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you're offering a service that people need. Because in my school, we had a business class where we kind of build a project plan and a business plan, and did some financial planning a little bit, but it's none of that stuff really makes sense until you get out and start doing it, and you're like,
right.
I need
Right.
help. So
You look at it on a page and you're like, okay, I got this. And then you sit down with your actual stuff and you're like, not so much.
yeah, it's overwhelming. And to go back to something you said earlier, it's like a lot of people that go into coaching and massage therapy, we're like helpers, and we really care about like the healing, helping people become healthy, and not so much about the financial part of it. And like I come from an accounting background, and I still am a little overwhelmed at the prospect of opening my own place eventually. So I can only imagine how people who have, like a kinesiology background or something,
Right.
like where do you even start? So it's I love the concept of the course you're going to offer in the group. And then I just cannot highly recommend your Instagram page enough, because it's like really simple tidbits of information to get people thinking about things in a different way, and to think about things in the right direction too. So it's a great Instagram feed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's only been live since July when we did the Maestro's challenge.
Yeah.
And usually it like comes pretty easy. And then, every once in a while it's like, okay, I'm finally out of content. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I have to really think about it, because I have this creative side that got pushed to the side when I became an accountant. And so it's fun to kind of drag that out and like come up with things and try to be helpful. And I do offer free coaching Friday, I call it, on Instagram. So if anyone has a question, they can always post it either in the DMs if they don't want anyone to know what it is they're asking, or comment on the free coaching Friday post too. That's an option too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, Sandi, and to share your expertise and your history as somebody who did strike out on her own, and the lessons that you learned there, and the guidance for people going forward, and how important it is to track those expenses, get everything in a spreadsheet. So, like January 15th, you're not sitting here like trying to download all your receipts for 2019.
Yes.
Figure out where they are and what you bought and what you did. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us.
I am so grateful for you asking me to come on and do this and share my message. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you to the Movement Maestro too for connecting us.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend.
Thanks, you too.
All right, bye, Sandi.
Bye-bye.